If you've ever felt like you're not good enough, like you're falling behind, like there's something about yourself that you wish you could just fix, then what I'm about to share with you might make you completely change how you see yourself. Because there's an entire philosophy built on the idea that the things that you think make you less valuable are actually the things that make you more valuable. And later on in this episode, I'm going to break down how the thing that you might be the most insecure about right now could actually be your greatest advantage if you know how to use it correctly. We live in a world right now that is obsessed with perfection, right? Everything is polished, everything is curated. Perfect bodies, perfect routines, perfect careers, perfect lives. We don't let anybody see any cracks in the facade, right? We try to put up this perfect image for everybody else so that nobody can actually see what's going on behind closed doors. You see this the most on social media, right? It becomes this pissing contest of who has the most perfect life. People are photoshopping things, people are lying about things, people are committing crimes just to keep up stories and keep up with this facade that they have this perfect life, right? People have gone so far in order to protect this perfect narrative because we put a lot of value on being perfect, right? And not letting people see what we perceive to be our weaknesses. And whether it's said directly or not, the message that we all get from that is if you just fix all of these things about yourself, then you'll be enough. Then you'll be a worthy human being. And that keeps you in a constant cycle of, I'll be confident when. I'll be happy when. I'll start enjoying my life when, right? There's always a when or a but or a thing that you have to do or a thing that you have to fix or something you have to achieve in order to actually be happy and actually be confident and actually feel like a worthwhile human being. But the problem is, most people never actually arrive there because it's kind of this perpetually moving goalpost. You hit the thing and then you move the target a little bit further back, right? I think a very common example of this is when people start their career and you think, oh, I'll be happy when I start making X amount of money. And then you make that amount of money. And it's like, oh, maybe I'll be happy when I make this amount of money. And then you make that amount of money. And it doesn't really make you feel the way that you think it's going to make you feel. So you think, well, it must be the next one, right? It must be the next goalpost. I just have to keep doing more and fixing more things and achieving more things. Then I'll be happy. And you just get stuck in this constant hamster wheel of never feeling good enough and constantly trying to cover that fact up for everybody else around you. So I want to introduce you to a Japanese philosophy called Kintsugi. Kintsugi is actually a form of art. This is a practice in which people take broken pieces of pottery and in order to repair them, they paint over all of the cracked parts with pure gold. Right? So they take gold and they fix all the cracked parts in the pot in order to make it whole again. And the messaging behind this is actually the most powerful part about it. The object is not flawed. The object is not damaged because it's broken. Through the practice of kintsugi and people painting all these cracks with pure gold, the object actually becomes more valuable because it broke. It's more valuable because of the damage, not in spite of it. The cracks are not something that artists are trying to hide or cover up. In fact, they actually go out of their way to highlight it because the broken parts of it become the most valuable thing about it. It's this belief that just because things are broken does not mean that they inherently lose their power. In fact, the breakage is where the real story begins, right? If you imagine that you have a clay pot or teacup or something along those lines, and it's not broken, right? It's fully intact. It looks just like every other pot or every other teacup that was manufactured at the same time. It's not unique. There's not really a story to it. But if you were to smash that item and then paint all the cracks with gold and put it back together, suddenly it has uniqueness. Suddenly it has a story. Suddenly the value of that object has gone up. This is what makes the thing uniquely important and impossible to replicate. And this connects a lot to another concept from Zen Buddhism called Wabi-Sabi.
Like how mine's a little off-center. It's got wabi-sabi.
Which means finding perfection in imperfection. In art books, you may see wabi-sabi translated as flawed beauty. Essentially, things being more beautiful, not in spite of their flaws and their imperfections, but because of them. And this is the takeaway that I want you to bring from this and apply to your own life. What if you're not flawed in the way that you think you are? What if the cracks in your facade are not weaknesses to hide? What if they're the things that make you uniquely you? What if they're the things that tell your story and give you more value? What if those are actually your gold? Because the thing about perfection is, while it looks pretty and it's very aesthetically pleasing to look at on social media, it's kind of generic, right? Perfection is pretty cut and dry and mimics a lot of other perfect things, but you having your own backstory and your own cracks and your own flaws and your own history that makes you uniquely you, that's what builds connection with people. That's what helps shape how you see the world. That's what helps you show up differently than everybody else. Imperfection is where your identity lives. And the mindset around this is such a huge shift because these cracks in our facade, those bumps in your backstory, the things that you may inherently want to hide from other people, the things that make you feel vulnerable, how you decide to manage those things is going to have a huge impact on how you're able to show up in the world. Because if you see them as flaws that you need to cover up, all of your energy is going to be dedicated to just trying to hide the person that you truly are. And you'll never amount to what you're trying to be because you're never operating as your true self. And you'll see this a lot with people who are really successful in their field. There is typically a common background of some sort of history of significant struggle or breakdown. And the amount of success that this person has achieved is not equivalent to the severity of the breakdown, right? It doesn't mean that because you go through something that is objectively harder, it means you're going to be more successful. Really, what it comes down to is not how difficult the breakdown was, it's how people handled the rebuilding and what they did with those cracks, right? Did they try to hide them? Or did they decide to turn those into their greatest strengths? And listen, I get it. This is a really hard thing to accept. This is a really hard thing to take on because we are conditioned to do the exact opposite, right? We are conditioned to polish all of our flaws and all of our cracks away and not let other people see them. So having to do the exact opposite and highlight them and actually let the entire world see where your cracks are, feels very scary. It feels very uncomfortable. It feels very out of the norm of what we've been taught to do. And so most people default to trying to hide. And again, we live in a world that kind of perpetuates this, right? We don't often see the struggle that people go through. We don't often see the cracks in their facade. And so we think that they're not there, right? I want you to imagine any success story that you have seen in your entire life. Somebody who has achieved a really big milestone in their career, somebody who has written a best-selling book, somebody who has finished a marathon for the first time in their life. You see the win, right? You see the highlight, you see the end product, you see the top of the mountain moment. You see all the good in that entire situation. What you don't see is all of the rejections that were faced leading up to that, is all of the failures and setbacks and hard work and starting a plan and having it not go the way you want and having to change course and figure it out. There is so much grueling hardship behind every single one of these big wins that the public are often not privy to. And so when you don't see it, you assume it doesn't exist. You assume that these people just get the good thing without all of the fumbling and failure and setbacks. But the truth is that's a part of it, a very important one. Right? It's those failures and those setbacks and the things that these people have rebuilt and learned as a result of it that got them to where they are. That is their gold. That is the reason they're able to succeed in the way that they have, is because they've taken those setbacks and they've built themselves to be stronger because of it. So instead of thinking to yourself that everybody out there is whole and you're the only one that's broken, I want you to remember that everybody has cracks. Everybody has those hard moments. Everybody has some shit that they're going through. A lot of people are just a lot better at hiding it. And I think a really good way to summarize this is the paradox of vulnerability, right? Vulnerability is this thing that inherently feels like a weakness, right? You exposing your shortcomings to other people and your vulnerable things to other people feels like a weakness, right? It feels like it's going to make you seem weak and fragile. But the paradox about this is you exposing your vulnerabilities and actually truly exposing yourself to other people is actually a demonstration of immense strength, right? It's what makes people understand you and connect with you, and they actually end up seeing you as a stronger, more capable person because of it. And when we talk about applying this to certain fields, oftentimes someone who has struggled with something in the past and has had cracks in their facade in a certain area is exactly what makes them the best person to succeed at that role later. Someone who struggled with confidence growing up but has rebuilt themselves and figured out the tools to improve it is going to be one of the best people to help others build it. The person who has failed repeatedly at someone is going to develop a level of resilience that most people never will. The person who thinks differently than everybody else, who was never really understood and felt like an outsider, is the person who's going to create the most original thing you've ever seen. Because no one else was going to think of it. Your uniqueness is your superpower. I want to give you some examples of this to help paint the picture for you. Taylor Swift is a really good example of this. She is someone who has been criticized constantly about things like her image and dating and drama. She has been picked apart and ripped to shreds on these topics. Did she let that tear her down, right? Did she let that become the cracks that she went out of her way to try and hide? No. Instead, what she did is she highlighted it and she turned it into her greatest strength. She didn't run from this narrative. She used it to help build her brand, and it has made her immensely successful because she leaned into the things that make her uniquely her. Billie Eilish is another good example of this, right? She didn't follow the typical pop star trajectory. She has her own style, her own aesthetic, and her own unconventional sound, and that's exactly why people like her, right? If she came out and tried to make herself sound like every other pop star out there in order to seem perfect and put together and to fit in, she would not have found the success that she found today. She is successful because she is uniquely her. That is what makes her valuable. That is what people connect to her and love her for. In putting this episode together, it actually made me think of a post I saw on Threads from Alex Hormozy a little while back, and I'm going to read it to you so I don't butcher what he said. But he says, Rogan talks about aliens, comedy, fighting, politics, biohacking. The Rock has WWE, movies, football, fitness, tequila. I like business, philosophy, fitness, comedy, and utilitarianism. You don't pick your niche. You are your niche. What's yours? The reason it made me think of this is because he's right. You are your niche. You are your brand. Not just in a building on social media context, not just in a business context. You are your brand, right? You and your story and your cracks and your vulnerabilities and the things that you've been through are what make you you. They're what make up your brand. They're what make up your unique flavor of being human, right? That is what makes you uniquely you, and that is what your value is. And I think inherently we know this, right? You don't love people because they're just like every other person you've ever seen. You don't love people because they have the perfect life and the perfect wardrobe and the perfect body and the perfect routine. You love them because they are uniquely them, right? You love them for their flaws and their vulnerabilities and the things that they've been through and their unique way of looking at things. That is what connects you to other people. And I think inherently we know that that is what brings the most value to the table. And yet it's the thing that we struggle the most to lay out on the table in front of everybody else. So how can we start making an effort to put this into practice, right? I want you to start by identifying your cracks. Instead of asking what's wrong with you, I want you to ask, what have I been through that has shaped me? What are your unique experiences? What are your unique perspectives? What are the things that make you uniquely you? Whether you think they're good or bad. And then I want you to start working to reframe it. Instead of beating yourself up for being a little bit different, instead of beating yourself up for having this hard experience, instead of beating yourself up for failing at a certain thing, I want you to ask yourself, how has this made me more aware? How has this made me stronger? How has it made me more human? What lessons have I learned as a result of these events? And I want you to start looking for all of the positive takeaways that you can take from your unique experience, because they're there. And honestly, this is just a really useful reframe for a lot of things. I find this is something I try to lean into a lot more now whenever I fuck anything up, really. I tend to be someone, and I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate, that if I make a mistake with something, I am very self critical and I'm very anxious about it. And I tend to overthink it to death and beat myself up for doing it. And so, a reframe that's been really helpful for me is, what can I learn from this? How can I get better from this? And so, instead of just sitting in my pity party anxiety stew, I can instead start to look for, where are the nuggets of value here? What can I actually take away from this in order to be better? And it actually makes what initially feels like a really negative thing, it makes it feel kind of like a positive. Because now I'm excited to seek out the value in the situation, and I'm excited to be a better person going forward. Right? And so generally speaking, I find this to just be a really helpful reframe. The next thing I want you to lean into is, stop hiding your cracks. And that doesn't mean just word vomiting to everybody that you come across. It doesn't mean brutally oversharing, but it does just mean making an effort to speak more honestly and show up more authentically and not pretending to be perfect when you're not. And again, this, like everything else, is a practice. It's not going to happen overnight. If you are someone who has been conditioned and has been used to hiding all of these things and keeping them away and not letting the people see who you truly are, it's going to be hard for you to open up those doors. And it's going to take a lot of very small intentional steps repeated over time in order for this to feel normal. So lean into taking those steps, right? Just do a little bit at a time. Maybe share one little thing about you that you've been too scared to share to other people before, and build from there. And start leaning into turning your experiences into your unique voice, your unique message, and your unique perspective. You are not something that needs to be fixed. You are a work of art that needs to be formed. And the parts of you that feel broken and vulnerable right now might end up being the most valuable parts of you. Just like Kintsugi, the gold is not there to hide the damage. It's there to prove what happened and to show that it created something even better. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.